Good morning, 4 Point. He's coming on the clouds. Sing with us. He's coming on the clouds. King kingdoms will bow down. Every chain will break. His broken hearts declare His praise. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Let me hear ya. Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power, and He's fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb, He's the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb, and every knee will bow before Him. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So open up the gates. So open up the gates. And we before the King of Kings. Our God who comes to save. Our God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is a Lion, the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power, He's fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb, He's the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb, and every knee will bow before Him. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? 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 Who can stop the Lord? Our God is the Lion of Judah, and He's roaring with power, and He's fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb, He's the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb, and every knee will bow before Him. Oh, 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 oh,
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Oh, I like the energy. It's a little smaller than we normally expected, a little cold outside, a little wintry mix. But it sounds like y'all are alive today. It's awesome. Well, if you know, here at Forward Point, we like to have some fun. Well, first of all, before I begin, sorry. I'm terrible at this, and my wife will tell you I'm terrible at this. It's about introductions. I don't even introduce myself, so my wife gets mad I don't introduce her. But I said I don't even introduce myself, so I don't get too upset. But my name is Emiliano. Been here at Forward Point for about a year, almost a year and a half. One of the leaders here. I help lead the men's group that's here. I serve and help set up outside, the coffee, popcorn, the tables, whatever else they may need, prayer. I'll do it because I'm living for a purpose here at Forward Point. So let me continue what I was saying before. We like to have fun here at Forward Point. So let's have fun with a little game called Emoji Phraseology. Let's see if the older crowd can beat out the young crowd, because usually young crowds are better at emojis than the older crowd. All right, let's see our first one, New Year's edition. I think you're right. Wow. I think that's 1 point for the older crowd. Baby New Year, there we go. There we go. All right, let's get our next one up. Wow. What is it? No, I don't think it's good night. That's close though. See the younger crowd. I think the younger crowd may have gotten it. Midnight, yes. Wow, I get to cheat because I get to see the answer. So, so let's look at the next one. Wow, I would never get that in a million years. What? And no, I don't hear it out there. What's the answer? See, that's unfair. Because that is an old tradition. Might as well be out in the Wild West shooting the guns in the air. No one does that anymore. Wow. Oof. Oh, I think we may have a winner. Winner, chicken dinner. Out with the old, in with the new. Good job. Wow, I like to see the older crowd getting a few points in there. Wow. All right, that concludes emoji phraseology. Good job out there. I never got a single one of those. I think the first one I probably would have gotten in about 5 minutes, but I get cheat codes out there in the back, so I get to figure it out before y'all do. Well, if you're new to Forward Point, or this is your first or second time, welcome. If you're looking for next steps, we ask that you go to our welcome center in the back. If you didn't get your gift, and the gift is phenomenal. We have fabulous, delicious banana nut bread. I love the banana nut bread. I've been trying to get my hands on more, but I think I've met my quota. They won't let me get any more. But it's delicious. Along with that, you get a little package at the Welcome Center. So if you didn't get it, we encourage you to go out to the Welcome Center right out back these doors. They can help you with all types of information. If you want to connect with us, we have the digital Connect card. You can connect with us because if you're interested in joining this community and taking that journey to the next step, you can text to 315. I'm going to take a little cheat sheet. 315-883-2213. You can text that welcome, and you can get the digital Connect card, fill out the information, and connect with us. There's many other ways that you can connect with us as well. We do social media. I don't do social media personally a whole lot, but I know a lot of people do. But we do as a church, Forward Point. We do Facebook, Instagram, and we do X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. That's how I call it. I will forever call it that. I don't think anybody calls it X, but that is the real technical name of it. But you can connect with us on there. But the real way to get in contact with us or connect with us and get in tune with the events, even the life beat of what Forward Point is doing, is the Church Center app. That is a great app. Download it on your app store. Type in Forward Point, connect with us. You can put in your information there. You can join life groups. You can register for events, get in the know of what's going on here at Forward Point, and you can really get connected. Really, really encourage you to get that app. And there's something, I came with props today, and I usually forget to mention these. And these cards are often forgotten. They're also in the back, right there by the giving table, also by the Welcome Center. They're called RAC cards. Now, when I talked to Jimmy, I was like, what does RAC stand for? And I was like, because it was a capital R-A-C-K. And I was like, He didn't really know 100% sure, so I came up with my own acronym. If anybody knows me, I've worked for the federal government for 20 years, so we love our acronyms. So I came with one on the spot. I'm calling it Radical Access to Knowledge. That's what I'm calling it. So for there, you get welcome, 4 points about baptism. You get all this kind of useful information for those of us who kind of like to put our hands on paper, want a little pamphlet to take with us on the go. They're located in the back. Casey and her welcome team center, is it Rachel? Rachel can help you and get you all the information that you need. If you want to know what's going on besides the Church Center app, I can tell you. We have Chosen. Chosen, if anybody is familiar with the show, it kind of tells you the story of Jesus' ministry here on earth. It's a fantastic production. It's probably one of the better ones that I've seen. I'm typically not a fan of Christian content. The quality tends to kind of grate me a little bit sometimes when I see it. But the acting, the production, everything is phenomenal. So if you haven't seen The Chosen, I suggest you do. We have a group called Better Together, and they're kind of sponsoring this, and they're kind of putting it together and gathering us. Once again, Church Center app. You can get that information on there. You go to Better Together group. You can request to join. I suggest you join. Get the information. Get in touch with Troy, Michelle. They'll give you all the information that you need. It's February 4th at 3:20, I believe, at Destiny USA Mall. There are 13 tickets available, so get on that really fast. And I think that's all that I have. The one thing that I have left is the kiddos. Any kids here? Yeah, love our kiddos. So if you want to go in the back, we have our Kid Min team that's back there. There we go. And let's continue with our gathering.
Time to show the world the top is what I strive for. Greatness is a journey I'm willing to stride for. Consistency is key and I don't take no time off. Against the odds, I put it all on the line for. A lesson learned for every flaw I'm gonna make. Consequence I undertake. Putting all my trust in faith. Failure won't become my fate. 10 toes down, I never fold. Give it all to reach my goal. That's my name is Stone. When my story's told, say I did it for the.
Good morning, Ford Point. How's everybody doing today? Yeah, I love this intro video of all the series we've done. I feel like I should have hype music like that every single week for every single series. So if you're into any kind of music style like that, producing it, let me know. I'd love to get you involved in helping with our our intro videos. My name's Jimmy. I'm one of the pastors here at Ford Point, and we're so glad that you could join us despite all of the crazy snow squall alarms you may have gotten this morning. I've gotten 3, I think, already. So be prepared. At any moment, we might get alerted of some kind of emergency happening in our area, but not to be afraid. This is a fallout shelter approved, right, Stephen? This can handle anything here at, yeah. So we're glad that you're here and we can embrace and handle the storms together here at the Palace Theater. How many of you guys have ever gone on a road trip before? Anybody done a road trip before? Yeah, a road trip is kind of one of those things where, it's not just getting in a car and going someplace. A road trip, it has this idea that you stop at a lot of different places, you stop to smell the roses, you look at all the sights on your way to another destination. Now, normally, when I travel, I don't necessarily like spending hours in the car. So I have some place that I have to get to. I'm going there quick, and I'm not stopping to smell the roses. We have 4 girls. They're all, 13 and under. So when we have some place to go like that, we want to get there quick because we start losing people rather quickly, and the car ride becomes unbearable for everyone once it becomes unbearable for one. But however, 2024 is going to be the year of the road trip for the Doyle family. Here's why that is. In February, next month, we have a wedding that we need to go to down in Florida. So we got this crazy idea. We said, you know what? Let us take a road trip. Instead of just flying the whole family down there, which would probably be super expensive, we're going to take the winter break month, and we're going to go down through Ohio. We're going to stop at the Creation Museum, and then we're going to stop at the Ark Encounter, and then we're going to stop at Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and then we're going to stop in Atlanta, and then we're eventually going to get to some friends of ours in Florida. Then we're going to go across the state to the other coast to go to the wedding, and then we're going to somehow make the trip back, right? If you could put it on your prayer list now to be praying for the Doyles, because we are going to need it going on that trip. This is our first one as a family, and really it's kind of the training wheels to see if we're prepared for a much larger road trip that we're going to do over the summer. What happened is I got asked by one of my former students from a church that I worked at in Florida to do their wedding, and she's now going to be in Indiana. So we said, you know what, we'll go to Indiana to do the wedding. And then there's this other thing that was going on in Colorado. About a week before that, there's this radio program called Adventures in Odyssey. It's a radio program that I grew up listening to as a kid, and now my kids listen to it every night going to sleep. So we're, a huge Adventures in Odyssey family. It's the longest running radio program that's out there, and they're going to be celebrating their 1,000th episode, and they're doing this really big shindig out in Colorado Springs, Colorado, right? So we thought, all right, Indiana is kind of closer to Colorado Springs than what New York is, so we're already going to be out there. So let's fly out to Colorado Springs for that event, and then we're going to do all sorts of road trips in the Midwest, and then we'll make it back for the wedding and then drive back up to New York from the wedding. Now, as you can imagine, it's been quite the adventure trying to get 6 people, 5 girls, 1 boy, to all agree, it's an important detail, to all agree on what we're going to do in said trip. And not alone just agree, but how we're going to plan to do this trip. If you're like me, then, I just kind of go by the seat of my pants, and that morning I kind of do for the day whatever I feel like doing. My wife, on the other hand, she's a teacher, now administrator, and she's much more of a spreadsheet kind of gal. So she created a note, and she's got option A, and she's got option B, and she's got a combination of, half option A and half option B of what this trip is going to look like. So we've been planning on it for weeks. We told the kids, all right, the year 2024, starting with Christmas, nobody's getting any presents for Christmas or for birthdays. Everything is just going into these trips that we're doing. So we've been planning and preparing. And then last night, after I think we have most of this all settled, I get all these texts about the girls don't want to do this. The girls don't want to do this. Because if you know anything about the Midwest, what looks like on a map a simple journey from one spot to the other is translated into hours and hours driving in the Sahara Desert, right? 100-plus degree days. So we had to carve out about 2 days' worth of driving out of our trip and doing different things because when you start to put it into the MapQuest application, you start to realize there is no way that we're going to survive doing that kind of journey. Physically, we might be able to do it, but as a family, I don't know that we'd be able to stay together after doing that kind of journey. And it kind of got me to think about what would cause anybody in their right mind to do this to themselves. And it came back to this idea, it all based around this invitation from this young lady who I knew about 20 years ago, spent about 3-4 years being a part of her life, that now we're willing to kind of spend a whole week, almost 2 weeks, enjoying this time together just so that we could be a part of this wedding that they asked me to do, right? In my profession, being a pastor, you get invited to do a lot of things. And unfortunately, I have more funeral director friends than I have people who are wedding planners. So I've done a lot more funerals than I have done weddings. But to be a part of someone's wedding, to be a part of someone's, special day, of all the people that they know, that they would invite me, knowing that I live all the way across the country, to come and be a part of this moment, it then, kind of causes you to do some things you maybe wouldn't normally do. Well, last week we started this conversation talking about this idea of the greater reward. Right, and the greater reward is that in life, there's going to be times when the immediate reward adds maybe something to my life now, but the greater reward multiplies to my life later on. That maybe if I set aside something now to invest, that instead of taking the immediate money now and spending it, if I save it and accrue interest, the greater reward comes down the road after I've had the discipline to leave it in the bank and allow the interest to accrue, that later on there is a greater reward that can come out of that, right? But unfortunately, we live in kind of this immediate, J.G. Wentworth, I want my money, right? It's my money and I want it now kind of culture. But we started off this idea last week recognizing that the greater reward is better than the immediate reward. And we looked at this idea in the parable of the soils. At the end, Jesus kind of gives us a hint of what it looks like to have a greater reward. He talked about how some fell on good earth and produced a harvest beyond his wildest dreams. And if you know anything about a harvest, or if you know anything about growing things, you know that it's not an overnight process. You just don't put a seed in the soil, and the next day there is fruit. It's this process that takes time. That in fact it takes a constant getting it in the right sun, giving it the right amount of food, giving it the right amount of water. And if you do all these things well, then maybe in a few weeks, a few months, you might be able to enjoy the flower, or you might be able to enjoy the fruit of this thing that is now growing. And Jesus gives us this idea as we transition from just, am I the right kind of soil, but now am I developing the heart of the farmer who just wants to lavishly throw out this seed wherever he can in hopes of experiencing a harvest beyond his wildest dreams. A harvest beyond his wildest dreams represents more than just a big crop. It represents people coming into relationship with Jesus. And this morning, we're going to dive into another story that revolves specifically around Jesus. And the end of the story, I want to kind of give you a little spoiler of why we chose this story for this morning, because of how it ended. And this is how Jesus describes this interaction that he just had in Matthew chapter 26. He says after this interaction, he says, you can be sure that wherever in the whole world the message is preached, that what she has just done is going to be remembered and admired. You know, when I read something like that, I get this idea about, man, what would it be like to live a life, to act in such a way, to be able to do things in such a way that that story lives on beyond just the day that it happened. Maybe lives beyond just the week that it happened, even beyond the year that it happened. What would it look like for it to last even beyond the lifetime that it happened? What could it look like to live, to do something in such a way that what you just did is going to be something that is remembered wherever in the whole world where the gospel is preached, what this person just did? And when I think about my life and the things that I do, the things that I invested in, the hours that I spend on things, you know, I'm challenged to realize that a lot of what I do is not going to live on beyond the 45 minutes it took me to watch it. Right? Maybe won't live beyond the day that it happened in, because I'm living for such small reward, an immediate reward now. So what happened that would lead to this kind of statement by Jesus? And that's what we're going to dive in today. We're going to be in the books of Matthew, Mark, and John. The same story is in all three of those books. from a different perspective. So you'll see up on the screen less of a reference and more about who the author, from their perspective, said it. But if you want some references, it's going to be in Matthew chapter 26 or Mark chapter 14 or John chapter 12 is where we find this story. But it's challenging because John says, you know what, of all the things that Jesus did, and there was a lot, he says there would be book upon book, so many books that there would be no library in the world that could contain all the things that Jesus did. And with that much stuff that Jesus accomplished in his 3 years of life, this one story of this one woman and what she did is not only going to be in just one of the Gospels, too, but in 3 of the Gospels. And wherever the message is talked about, her story is going to be remembered. So Matthew starts off the story. He says, when Jesus was at Bethany, a guest of Simon the leper. So here it is, Passion Week. It's the week that Jesus is going to be headed to the cross, and we introduced to this character we don't really know anywhere outside of the story, and it's Simon the leper. What we have to understand is the phrase Simon was a very common nickname used for people. You read throughout the Gospels, you hear about Simon Peter. Peter got the nickname Simon. Simon, a very common surname, nickname, but leper was not. Leper was not a common nickname. It was not something that you wanted to be known as. Being a leper basically showed that you were an outcast. You were an untouchable. You had to remove your life from all the hustle and bustle of normal city and community life, and you had to live in a community outside, separated from the rest of the world. So we don't know if this person was an actual leper, or this may be a nickname for Lazarus, because we're going to read in one of the other accounts how this is in the house of Lazarus is there, and Mary and Martha are there. And as we all know the story of Lazarus, Lazarus was someone who died and was buried, and then Jesus rose from the grave. But as a good Jewish person, you were not allowed to touch another human being that was dead. So Lazarus very well could have developed this reputation amongst other real devout Jews that you couldn't go anywhere near him because he had been dead. So this might be another person, or this could be a nickname for Lazarus. We're not sure. But what's important to catch at the beginning of the story is that Jesus finds himself in community doing life with the untouchables. Jesus is in relationship with, Jesus is going after the very people that most of culture, most of society would say are outcasts, are people that you want to stay away from. You get as far away as you can. And Jesus says those people are the people that you should go and eat with. And this is one of the greatest discrepancies between Jesus and our current Christianity. Because our current Christianity is very nice and cut and clean, picture perfect. We have beautiful buildings. But it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for the outcasts, for the untouchables. And right at the beginning of the story, we're kind of challenged to reflect in your life, and as I was to reflect in my life, is when was the last time that you pursued relationship with a scandal? Okay, and I'm not talking in a sinful way, like, when was the last time you were, caught up in maybe emotions for an affair or something like that? Nothing like that at all. But when was the last time that you pursued a relationship with maybe somebody who our culture deems scandalous? Or maybe someone who our current Christianity kind of dubs as scandalous and should not be at a church? Right? When was the last time that you pursued relationship with a scandal? And what we see with Jesus, and what we see with the early church and his followers, and what we see with current Christianity is quite the gap. We see somebody who, in Jesus would constantly pursue these relationships and invite himself over to have dinner with people who are walking scandals. people who the current religious establishment said, what is Jesus doing? In fact, they would get to the place of being indignant at the fact that Jesus was having meals with these people. And so what happened was the people who were nothing like Jesus fell in love with Jesus. And the people who were nothing like Jesus, Jesus constantly found himself in relationship with. And we see this in the early church where everybody would just get together, no matter what their race was, no matter what their life looked like, they would get together, they shared all that they had, and as a result, the church just blew up. But now we're living in this culture where for the first time, the professing Christians and the people who talk about, being committed to a church is declining here in America. And I have to wonder if there's something about people in our culture that has bit into our faith or our religion, and we're losing our potency because we've been more in it for the immediate reward versus the greater reward. And we've lost the need, the calling, the mandate to build bridges towards people who are nothing like us, who are nothing like Jesus, but like Jesus, have those people call him friend and Savior. What we have been into in kind of our 2024 Christianity is quality over quantity. Right? We're more concerned with the quantity versus the quality. If we could just fill up chairs, if we can just get this event where we can get as many people who are there and as many people to raise their hands as possible, then we think that we are fulfilling the gospel. Versus when you look at the life of Jesus, he got together and did life with 12 people, and for those 3 years, for the most part, banging his head more often than not. Guys, would you just get the picture here? And he was more concerned about the quality of their faith versus the quantity of people around him. And for most of my life, I grew up with this quantity kind of mindset. I remember going to different events that churches would do, and now I look at them, and I call it hostage evangelism. They would go into the city, and they would say, we're doing this big free Thanksgiving meal. We're going to have free turkey, and we got stuffing, and we got mashed potatoes. And everybody who's in need, come to this event. And you know what would happen? All these people who were in need would come to this event. But the people would say, all right, sit down at the chairs, and you can't have the food. We can't have the meal until you listen to this guy get up and share about Jesus. And we held people hostage. And there would usually be multiple altar calls, right? There would be the first one, and nobody would raise their hand for the first one. And then the guy would go back and preach some more, and then he did another altar call, and gradually people started to realize, okay, if I just raise my hand, and if everybody raises their hand, this guy stops preaching, and we can just start eating. And more people raising their hands as a result of hostage evangelism versus the quality of their faith, right? Less about someone coming alongside them and doing life with them and helping them understand who this Jesus is. And we just thought if we can just check off 50 or 100 or 1,000 this week of people who raised their hand, more concerned with the quantity versus the quality. And what would it have looked like for someone just to come alongside somebody to say, I want to spend my life helping you in your life. And quality is not as sexy as quantity. Man, being able to say that last week we had 100 people raise their hand, that sounds really good as a pastor. That sounds really good as a church that's trying to grow and reach their community. It's not as sexy as saying, I'm going to give my life over to this one person for the next week or month or year or however long it takes. Because we've looked at these numbers before, right? We could hold some kind of tent meeting or a revival setting here at the Palace every day. And if every day we had 1,000 people raise their hand to say, yes, I want to follow Jesus, that would take more than my lifetime and more than your lifetime and more than all the lifetimes in this room that's represented to reach the world. It would look cool. It would sound cool. It'd be a great story to tell on Monday or the next morning. But consider that with the greater reward. What if for a year I said, you know what, I'm just going to give my life over to you. You have unlimited access to my life, and we're just going to talk about God and where we see God moving in our life. And I'm going to choose to be a disciple who makes disciples. And if I did that for a year, and then after that year, both of us decided to do that for other people for a year, and then after that year, if all of us decided to do it for another person in our lives, do you realize that we could reach the entire population of the world after just 30 years based on the power of multiplication? Based on being able to say no to the immediate gratification of the quantity of our results, and yes to the long-term investment of quality in people's lives. It would change. It would flip things on their head, but we'd have to break out of this mindset that we are drawn towards of we want it now as much as we can now. And Jesus found himself constantly building bridges in these relationships with the untouchables, with the scandals of his day. Matthew goes on, he says, when Jesus was at Bethany, a guest of Simon the leper, a woman, and again, here's another scandal that's going on. And in that culture, right, women were not given much right or status in that culture, but Jesus was constantly giving value to the women that were around him. A woman came up to him, and as he was eating dinner, and anointed him with a bottle of very expensive perfume. Matthew gives us this picture of just this woman coming in, anointing Jesus. Mark says this way, opening the bottle, she poured it on his head and anointed his head. John says it this way, he says, Mary came in with a jar of very expensive aromatic oils, anointed and massaged Jesus' feet, and then wiped them with her hair. And John gives us the first description of the actual people, where we learn that it's Lazarus who's there, and Mary and Martha. And here it should be no surprise to us that Mary gets a perspective from Jesus' feet, because Mary has this habit of being at Jesus' feet. We all know the story of Mary and Martha, and Jesus is there, and Martha is working and saying, Jesus, Mary's just sitting there at your feet. Get her to help me make the food, because there's some mouths we got to feed. And Jesus says to Martha, Martha, Mary has chosen the better thing, to be here at my feet. And now here it is, the Passion Week, and days away from Jesus giving his life. And Mary, once again, we get this view of her being at his feet, only this time she lets out her hair, another very scandalous action in that culture. She takes the expensive perfume and she anoints him, and specifically John makes note of the way she interacts with his feet. He goes on, Mary came in with this jar of very expensive aromatic oils, anointed and massaged Jesus' feet, and then wiped them with her hair, and the fragrance of the oils filled the house. Like, this wasn't just the, Perfumania kind of cheap knockoff brands that you get. New York City, you go and, you get some of the knockoff brand of your favorite perfume, and you put it on, and, 30 minutes later, you don't smell it anymore, right? It's diluted, and the knockoff brand. This is the real stuff. It came in a little alabaster jar, we're told. Probably something very similar to this, something that it would be encapsulated in. Kind of you spend it once type of deal. You'd have to break the bottle, or there was no getting this back in once it was used. This stuff was so expensive, it was so pure, that it literally filled the entire house with the fragrance. Right? We all know people in our life who sometimes it feels like they put on a whole bottle of, whatever perfume, or I don't even wear that stuff, so I don't even know what's out there anymore, right? It gets a little, sometimes you get headaches because it's so much poured on. Probably nobody here. I don't know why you're laughing. But this stuff that she had was so pure, so potent, that she used it. And it filled up the entire house with the aroma. Matthew says, when the disciples saw what was happening, they were furious. The word used is this idea of being indignant. The disciples became indignant. It's this idea that they're getting upset, like they can't believe that this is happening. We might use the term righteous indignation, right? There's sometimes some things we get really upset about, we get really angry about, and we feel like because we're right, it's a righteous indignation. But this phrase is only used a few times in the Gospels of being indignant. The first time we see it is we actually see it by the Pharisees. The Pharisees become indignant at the fact that Jesus is eating with sinners. He's having meals, and the Pharisees asked the disciples, and it says they became indignant. Why does your master eat with these sinners? Elsewhere in the Gospels, we see this word used by Jesus. And to describe Jesus, it says Jesus became indignant. And listen to why he became indignant. He became indignant because they would not let the little children come to him. And he says, let the little children come. And another time, Jesus is described as being indignant when there was somebody who needed to be healed. And he was kind of being pushed out as a result of his sickness. And it says that Jesus indignantly said, do you wish to be made well? And he made him well. You see, the thing that made Jesus indignant was being separated from people. You have the Pharisees who become indignant because they're losing their grip on people. And here it's interesting. We have the disciples, and the disciples see what's going on here. And this is the only time that the disciples are described as indignant. You see, the Message translation translates it furious, anger. But between the example that the Pharisees have and the example that Jesus lived, which indignation does theirs more resemble? It resembles that of the Pharisees. This idea that this woman would come in this scandalous act, and she would use this jar of perfume. It made them furious. And here's what we can take away about our own lives, is the thing that makes you indignant reveals your priorities in life. All right, just think about this past week. When over this past week do you recognize in your life the times that you started to become indignant, the times that you started to get angry? And what you'll have, if you write them down and you kind of look them over, is a glimpse into the priorities of your life. For the Pharisees, it was their control, it was their power, it was the religion that they had established, and Jesus was a threat to that. For Jesus, it was that there was broken relationship, and how dare people keep me from my creation? That's what I'm here for. And for the disciples, we see that it was something other than what Jesus was living for, what Jesus had spent the last 3 years showing them about. And they were angry. They were furious. And as we live through one of the greatest mass rebellions of faith in history, we have to ask ourselves, what are our priorities? And what is it that we are getting indignant over in our life? And if you're anything like me, there's a good chance that it's not about anything for the greater reward. It's about some things that have happened that have maybe prevented me from some immediate rewards in my life. You see, but Jesus was passionate about relationship. The religious leaders were passionate about rules. And the irony here is that the disciples who had spent 3 years in relationship with Jesus decided to choose the rules over the relationship. Matthew goes on to say that that's criminal. This could have been sold for a lot and the money handed out to the poor. And this is one of the reasons I love the Gospels and put such validity into what they say, is because if I'm one of the Gospel writers, this is kind of the stuff that I'm leaving out, right? I'm not putting in the stuff that makes me look like a dirtbag. I'm not putting in the stuff that makes me look like I'm not passionate about it or bought in. I'm leaving this scandalous stuff kind of out. But Matthew outs himself and his friends. In fact, John goes a little further. He says it was Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, even then getting ready to betray him, said, why wasn't this oil sold and the money given to the poor? I mean, we all know Judas is the betrayer who traded Jesus in for some silver. We get that he would do it, but Matthew says we allow Judas to whisper in our ears and to kind of plant these ideas that somehow this perfume that this woman was spending on Jesus was a bad investment, and that we should get indignant over this. Probably some righteous indignation. They probably felt that they were pretty justified because this could have been given to the poor. And that's what we're about, the poor. But they chose to default to rules over relationship, to default to quantity over quality. How many poor people could we have helped with this perfume? Versus what does it look like for the quality of this one act? And while Judas had his ulterior motives, he used his righteous indignation to rally up the rest of the group to all move them towards this indignation. In fact, Mark tells us a little bit about just how much this was worth. He says, this perfume could have been sold for well over a year's wages and handed out to the poor. Right? When you think about Mary and this gift that she comes to Jesus with, we don't know what it was for, but we can speculate. There's a good chance that this represented Mary's dowry gift, right? Something so precious. Some of the translations tell us it was nard, and not just any kind of nard, but spikenard. The purest form is this plant that grew in India that somehow had made its way into this jar that she now possessed, worth a year's worth of wages. Think about what you make in a year, and she's holding that in her hands, and in a moment, she just pours it out over Jesus. Maybe representing her future, at someday hoping in this relationship where she would be taken care of. Or maybe at some point when she moves out with her family, with Lazarus and Martha, that this would represent the down payment on a house and some kind of a pile of gold to get her up and running in a future business, whatever. It represented security, future. And in that moment, she chooses just to spend it all on Jesus. Right, this one moment, this quality type of event that would change the perspective for everybody. Now, what we have in America today, I had Amelia bring on, this is what our faith looks like. American church culture, we have a rocking chair faith. We keep our vials of perfume in the safe, protecting them. We have a rocking chair faith. You know the thing about rocking chair? You know, it feels like you're doing a whole lot, but you're not really going anywhere. Right? And our Christianity, what we've done is we got all sorts of things that we're doing a lot of quantity type of things. But we've run out of quality type events, things that change people's lives. And this woman brings her alabaster box of this perfume and gives it and spends it all on Jesus. And we get a glimpse here. Here's the thing about charity. Charity without relationship, Forward Point, leads to enablement. And we are living in a culture where more people than ever are enabled because we have been settling for all sorts of rocking chair type of events. How many people can we get to raise their hand? How many people can we get in the seats on a Sunday morning? And we think we're doing a whole lot, but we're not going anywhere. I've come to realize this about mission trips, short-term mission trips. Right, short-term mission trips are a group of people, they get together and they say, let's raise, $2,000 for us to be able to go to this other part of the world. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell them about Jesus. Because there's nobody there in their country who can tell them about Jesus, I guess. But as long as we're doing something, as long as we're rocking, as long as, it feels like we're not going anywhere. But yeah, we're doing something. Who knows what a local pastor could have done with the some $20,000 you raised to send your team down there. And time after time of mission trip that I've been a part of, everybody comes back with the same story. You know what? It changed me more than anything I was able to do down there. And for a long time, that became this kind of cool rally cry, like, wow, that God really worked in your life as a result of you raising all this money to go across the world. When you know what, there's people across town who could use whatever it is you felt you had to do across the world. But the mindset is, if I'm doing something, if I'm, raising lots of money to go someplace far away, I'm rocking in my chair, but I'm not really going anywhere. For a long time, something in church world, man, you were considered, growing and making a difference in your community if you had a food pantry. Right? And all these people would come into this place and get food from you, and then they just would leave. And you just spend money, have people donate, not doing anything that is building relationship with people, but you're rocking in your chair. It feels like you're doing something, but you're not going anywhere. Right? And this is really the difference between the story of the idea behind giving people fish versus teaching them to fish, right? You've probably heard the example. We could spend the rest of our lives just giving people fish, feeling like we're doing a whole lot. But what if all of us decided to say, I'm going to build a bridge with a scandal in my community, with someone, with a relationship with somebody, and I'm going to invest in it. How do I help them learn how to fish for themselves? How do I show them what it looks like to get the right, this is probably a terrible analogy because I don't know anything about fishing, so I don't know, fishing pole and bait and all that kind of stuff. How do you get them to understand that process, and then you get them to understand the water and the right times to go out? What does it look like? That looks a little bit more like saying, the time that maybe I wanted to spend on my retirement, on my man cave, on something valuable and important to me, I'm going to pour out. For the sake of investing in this one person, man, it's not as sexy as the thousands coming to Jesus all at once. But it's an investment of teaching this person how to fish, so now they can fish for themselves. And now they just don't fish for themselves, but now they're telling some of their buddies who they don't know how to fish either. They're struggling to make ends meet. They're struggling to feed their family, and now they're showing their buddies how to fish. And this is the difference between our current Christianity, is we have a lot of people who just are content rocking in a rocking chair, and nobody's bringing their alabaster jar full of what means most to them in the world and laying it at Jesus' feet. I mean, some of this stuff, don't get me wrong, some of this stuff is good. Some of this stuff, you know what, Forward Point, we need to start there. We need a starting place. But if we stay here, then we're settling for good and we're never getting to what is great. And what we need in Syracuse and what we need in America and what we need in the world is people who refuse to just settle for what is good and constantly saying, God, would you take what's most important to me, my alabaster box, and how do I make it great? How do I pour it at your feet and go from good to great? To really touch and impact people on a level that they could never do on their own. And that's what we see happening here. You see, we have set the bar way too low, where as long as we're just moving, we got our card stamped. We got the hole punched. Matthew says, when Jesus realized what was going on, the indignation in Judas that spread to the disciples, he intervened and he says, why are you giving this woman a hard time? She has just done something wonderfully significant for me. And 4 Point, this has got to challenge us. This has really got to rock us is what you are doing, whatever it may be, who are you doing it for? Because who you are doing it for determines how far you're willing to go. And most people in our culture and in their faith are doing it for themselves. And that's why they don't ever get out of the rocking chair. That's why they don't ever go to the safe and open it up and pull out that one thing that means more to them than anything else, and say, God, I'm just going to pour this at your feet. Like David of the Old Testament, he had to make a sacrifice. And he goes to this leader, and he says, can I buy this land for me because I have to make this sacrifice to God? And the leader says, David, I respect you and your ministry and who God has called you to be. Not a chance. You can have the field for free. You can, in fact, I'm going to throw in the sacrifice, the animals for free. I'm going to give it all to you. And David says something very insightful about who he's doing it for. He says, that won't work. He says, I refuse to sacrifice to God that which costs me nothing. I got to pay for it. You see, if he was doing it for himself, that would have been a great deal. Score! But he wasn't doing it for himself. He was doing it for God. And he says, I cannot sacrifice that which costs me nothing. And Mark says, Jesus' reaction, he describes it this way. He says, you will have the poor with you every day for the rest of your lives. In fact, he says, whenever you feel like it, you can do something for them. Like it's important to have those things. You're going to be able to do those things anytime. There's going to need to be on-ramps for people who are kind of checking out this faith thing, get to build a relationship with other people, and you need to have those opportunities. But you're always going to have the poor with me. He says, but you know what? You are not going to always have me with you. She did what she could when she could. She pre-anointed my body for burial. You see, things are about to hit the fan, and this wasn't going to suffice a week later. Right? If she's sitting there and she's thinking, man, should I do this today? The disciples are there. They don't really like me. This is super expensive. Maybe if I use a little bit on myself first, and then later on I'll give Jesus what's left over. Like, this doesn't work a week later. This doesn't work if it's not all of it. At any point, disciples, when I'm gone, you're going to have times to be able to give to the poor and to minister to the poor. And in fact, much of the New Testament we see where everybody's given whatever they have, and the poor are being taken care of. But Jesus said there's a greater reward where right now in your life, if you choose to sacrifice, to invest, you're not going to maybe see the results today, maybe tomorrow, maybe not in a year from now. But you're investing, you're laying the groundwork for a greater reward by giving over this jar, by choosing to build a relationship to teach somebody to fish. That's the kind of difference that it's going to make. And in fact, as a result, where we started, he says, you can be sure that wherever in the whole world and all of heaven, wherever this message, this gospel, this story is told, that what she has just done is going to be remembered and admired. It felt like a huge investment for her, but she refused to give to God that which costs her nothing. She chose this, in the scheme of eternity, this small investment for a much greater reward. My wife and I were in Florida when we first saw the message online that Agnes, the young lady who asked me to do her wedding, had gotten engaged. And I got a phone call from her. I wasn't able to answer, but she left a message, and she said, Jimmy, would you call me back? There's something that I'd really like to talk to you about. Now, you have to understand, I haven't really talked to Agnes in the last 2 decades. I don't think I've heard her voice. We've messaged a few times through text message. I wish her happy birthday. And Agnes was the first person to reach out to me when one of my other students had died from an overdose. She was the one who told me. So we kind of did the math and put it together and kind of assumed, based on when they got engaged and based on the countdown they had put up to when they were getting married, we kind of already went into the conversation knowing that she probably was going to ask me to do the wedding and what day it was going to be. And sure enough, we got back to New York, and I gave her a call, and she started to tell me about this person that she had met and everything that had gone on in their life, and that he had proposed, and they were engaged. And she said, Jimmy, I was having this conversation with my mom. And my mom asked me this question. She said, Agnes, well, who do you think you're going to have do the wedding for you? And she said, Jimmy, I kind of paused and was a little dumbfounded because I just responded to my mom. And she said, I just always assumed that Jimmy would do it. And her mom kind of, a little dose of reality. She says, well, you kind of have to ask him. But as she said, I just kind of always assumed that Jimmy would do it. You could hear the break in her voice as she started to get emotional, and she started to tap back into the 4 years that we spent together and we invested in her life. That the small investment of 3-4 years of having weekly youth group nights, of doing leadership retreats, of going on camping trips, of doing all these things, that somehow 2 decades later, it would turn into this emotional, heartfelt, Jimmy, when I think about getting married, there's nobody else who I can even imagine marrying me than you. Hadn't spoken in decades. But because of the greater reward that we chose to live there in Florida and in other places in our life, wasn't that week, that year, that decade, but decades later would come back into something that now as a family we're building this crazy road trip around, all because we're going to be a part of this young girl's marriage. We're going to teach people how to fish, Forward Point. We're going to reorient ourselves to not just be rocking in a rocking chair and think that is the bar. But we're going to start to really dive in. In fact, there's a group that's going to be meeting in a little while, and I'm going to challenge them. How do we just take our rocking chair things to these events where we're meeting people's needs in a way that they could never meet on their own? And that's going to be the new bar for us. Unless people are, dropping down to their knees crying because of the way we've impacted them, then we haven't poured out the jar enough. And we want to pour out the jar in such a manner that not just the entire house is filled with the aroma, not just the entire street, not just Eastwood, not just Syracuse. We believe that with all of our jars combined, that we can pour out a pretty powerful aroma that people are going to smell. And it's going to draw them to not raise their hands, but to maybe start tiptoeing into this relationship where they start to ask questions about who is this Jesus person. Because up to this point, all I'd known him as is being judgmental, as condemning, as looking down. But I look at that and I look at you and I just can't reconcile the two. Tell me about this Jesus that you know. And we're going to live for the greater reward. God, we are so grateful that you chose centuries ago to live as an investment for us. That we could be here in 2024 as a result of this story that you've put into motion, as a result of this life that you lived here on earth, that you modeled for us, that you demonstrated for us. And God, this morning, we can't help but stand here next to this example of Mary's. And not be moved and not be challenged to examine our life and to look at the things that make us get indignant and to examine our priorities and to be left saying, man, we are so far away from the priorities that you had. That we have been so consumed in the activity of this rocking chair of just doing all sorts of actions but not going anywhere. And God, this morning, we want to enter into this process of allowing you to search us, giving you permission to know us, giving us the space to be real and honest as we launch our life groups this week, to ask the hard questions and to examine our life and to see where are we living more like a rocking chair versus where are we living pouring out our alabaster box, pouring out and laying at your feet the one thing that maybe represents the most to us in life, a relationship. Not that you're asking us to get rid of those, but we're tired of having those things first in our life, and we want to come back to a place where we're pursuing the scandals, the Simon Lepers of our society. So would you help us this morning to leave some things at your feet that have been holding us back, to leave some things at your feet that have allowed us to just kind of go through the motions, to look at our life where we've just been settling for the immediate reward. And God, would you replace our hearts with your heart to begin to transition from just feeding people to teaching them how to fish. God, would you help us to continue in that journey ourselves, to know you in a way that maybe we didn't when we came in here this morning. that an experience with you this morning is not to just lead to some kind of hand-raising moment, but to make a declaration before God, to say, God, I'm going to turn away from this lower thing that I've been living for, and I'm going to turn towards your higher plans and purposes that you have for me. Would you help us all just to respond to you this morning?
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. Worship you. Let's sing that again. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here. 'Cause you are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. 'Cause you are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. 'Cause you are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. 'Cause you are here, you're mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Let's sing that again. You are. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 'Cause that is who you are. 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 That is, 'cause that is who you are. 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 Even when I can see that you're working.
Even when I don't feel that that you're working. You never stop working. You never stop
Even when-
working. Even when I don't see that you're working. Even when I don't feel that you're working. You never stop working. You never stop
Even when-
working.
Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. You never stop, even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. You'll never stop, even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. You never stop, Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 'Cause that is who you are. 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 'Cause that is who you are. 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 There once was crowned with thorns, is crowned with glory now. The Savior knelt to wash our feet. Now at His feet we bow. One who wore our sin and shame, robed in majesty, the radiance of perfect love that shines for all to see. Your name, your name is victory. Our praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. Our praise will rise to Christ our King. The fear that held us now is weighed to Him who is our peace. His final breath upon the cross is now alive in me. It's now alive in me. Sing with us, your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our. Sing it again. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By your spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I'll come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King, come on church, is resurrecting me. By your spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. It's resurrecting me. The two soldiers watched in vain, was borrowed for 3 days. His body there would not remain. Our God has robbed the grave. Our God has robbed the grave. Your name is victory. Our praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. Our praise will rise to Christ. Sing it again. Your name is victory. Our praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ. By your spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. It's resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By
Such a good message. I want to thank Jimmy for that. Something in particular that he kind of triggered a memory from me from last year. So my brother Lee over here, he has a saying that, he likes to tell on himself, which is a good thing because it doesn't allow the fester and grow in the dark. Jimmy kind of pointed out with Matthew how they kind of didn't leave out some pretty gritty details about himself, about falling short. And in that light, I'd like to kind of tell on myself a little bit. It has to do with charity versus relationship. And I remember working one night, and then I just got off, did an overnight shift. Had been a pretty bad shift. It was pretty hectic. I was really tired. I was really hurting physically. And usually when I go home in the morning time, I'll make myself breakfast, veg out for about half hour, and then go to sleep because I had to work that night. And I remember I didn't want to go home and cook breakfast. So I drove to Dunkin' Donuts on the way home. And I remember pulling into the parking lot, and there was somebody there. And I remember the first thing that came to my mind is, one, I didn't want to interact with anybody. Two, they're going to ask me for money. I didn't want to be bothered. So I made it a point to park away. That's what I did. Parked away. And I go inside. Shortly after, thinking about what I want to get, the gentleman walks through the doors. He says, hey, you're waiting in line. I said, no, go ahead. I'm still trying to think of what I'm going to have. And I kind of move over to the side. He goes in, he orders coffee. And I can hear the person from Dunkin' Donuts saying, hey, is that all you're going to have, just the coffee? And he kind of sheepishly said, that's all I could afford. Immediately in my spirit, I get hit with that, well, you parked away, you didn't want to be bothered, and this is somebody that needs help, obviously. So I chimed in and said, hey, you know what do you want to eat? I'll get it for you. Don't worry about it. I'll put it with my order. And so takes my order, I tell her what I want, he tells her what he wants, and I'm thinking that's the end of it. I did my good deed for the day. And then I kind of go over to the side. And then the Lord tells me in my spirit, why don't you say hello? I'll be honest with you, I'm like struggling at this. I want to tell the Lord, no, I'm like exhausted, I'm hurting. I did my good deed for the day, I want to move on. I say, well, all right. So I go over and I ask the guy, hey, how you doing? I hear you're kind of having it rough, everything okay? And he tells me his name, I tell him my name. He says, what, are you working? Yep. We do a lot of the small talk. And shortly, about a 5-minute conversation waiting, I'm encouraging him, to keep it up, keep your chin up. Things do get better, and I hope, the food goes down well. I hope the rest of your day goes well. It starts looking up for you. And he tells me, it's more than the food, I'm more appreciative that you said hello and you talk to me because I don't get that. Most people don't want to bother with me. Wow, that kind of hit me really in the gut. That was a gut punch because I wasn't willing to be bothered in my day because I had a bad and long night and I was physically tired. We have to learn how to be interrupted, regardless how we're feeling, how uncomfortable we may be. Giving money, giving food is great, but saying hello to somebody is even that much better and more appreciative. On that note, if you're new to Forward Point, as I mentioned earlier today, there are some next steps that you can take. There's a welcome center outside with some information. You can go to the Church Center app. You can hook up for events and everything that you need there. The other thing you can hook up for is with life groups. Life groups start again this week. If you're part of a life group, enjoy. At some point this week, I know it varies depending on what life group you are and what day of the week it is, but you can get all that information on the Church Center app. If you are not part of a life group, I highly encourage you this year, please do so. It's very uplifting, it's very edifying. You get good time, you get good fellowship, you get good food, you get a word, there's a whole lot of benefits that you can get from a life group. A lot of times I enter a life group, I usually am a little bit tired from doing things during the course of the day. When I leave, I feel actually better than I did when I got there. So life groups are definitely a bonus. If you do like what we do here at Forward Point and you want to support us, there are 4 ways you can give. You can give in the back. There's a giving box in person. You can text any amount to 84321. You can, once again, cheap plug, Church Center app. You can give very easily. That's the way I do it, and I love to do it that way. You can go online to forwardpoint.org/give. Those are 4 ways that you can give. We'd like to thank the Palace Theater for helping, allowing us to have this space. We do have to get it back to its original condition and ready for whatever events they have coming forward. So if you're interested in helping us out to clean up and get things back in order, you can meet us in the very back. We can hand out assignments for you, thanking you in advance and being appreciative in advance for your help. If you have kiddos, please pick them up. We love them, but definitely pick them up. Don't leave here without them. Don't be like Mary and Joseph when they left Jesus at the temple and have to backtrack and come get them. And lastly, but not least, if you need prayer, please, in the back, right outside these doors, we have a group of people who are fantastic that will not only pray for you, they will stand in agreement with you. They'll pray for you, they'll pray with you. All right, have a great week.
Now we're going to have Troy this week to do the lead guitar. And as you can tell, I allow a lot of animals up here. When I'm hoarse, I have frogs in my throat, so we need lots of participation here. So instead of a guitar lead line, why don't you just sort of hum this with? Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Yeah, before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You've been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You've been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. All right, here we go. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. When I was your foe, when I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so good to me. I feel no worth, you paid it all for me. You've been so kind to me. Overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you'll light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Yeah, I can hear you, church, come on. There's no shadow you won't light up, down you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's a wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. We love you guys.